Well, I spent most of my career as a professor of public health, starting back after I finished my postdoc um, about 15 years ago, a little over 15 years ago, and got interested in THR, tobacco harm reduction, after I worked on actually a litigation case back in 2001. Before that, I didn't have any more idea than the average person about the huge potential of THR. But having worked on that, I was just astonished to discover how low risk and how promising an alternative, smokeless tobacco, of course e-cigarettes didn't exist at the time, how promising that was as an alternative to smoking, and how nobody knew how low risk it was. I mean, not nobody obviously, but most people, including most public health experts. After that, it became clear to me that that was probably the most important public health area that anybody who works in the Western world could be working on, and so I really shifted into working on that. I was at the University of Texas Medical School and School of Public Health at the time. I moved up to the University of Alberta, recruited to go there to start a tobacco harm reduction research shop, which was great. It worked for a while. That's where tobaccoharmreduction.org came from. Then bad things happened to that department, and I ended up leaving, and I didn't really want to stay in academia anymore, so I'm back in the States now working independently.
And you became involved with CASAA following?
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, I started having some involvement with CASAA over the last couple of years. Earlier this year, earlier 2012, I actually merged tobaccoharmreduction.org into CASAA. So, once it was part of the University of Alberta, now it's part of CASAA, which is really a perfect fit because, we bring together in CASAA, a lot of different skills, and keeping things organized and keeping up on all of the information and everything is not my thing. I delve deep into scientific points, and so it works out very nicely. We haven't done too much with the sort of tobaccoharmreduction.org side of things yet, but we're certainly going to. And meanwhile, I've started to create a lot of new scientific content under the CASAA auspices.
Awesome. And you just recently launched a new blog in the last 60 days or so, correct, called Anti-THR Lie of the Day?
Yeah, that's right. So Anti-THR Lies.blogspot.com is where it is right now. I might change that address, but if you search Anti-THR Lies, whoever's out there watching this, you'll find it. And yeah, that's a project that I'm particularly proud of. It actually in some ways traces back to the very first paper I wrote on this topic, published almost 10 years ago, called "You Might As Well Smoke," which was a sort of a parody response to the message that was coming out. Again, then it was about smokeless tobacco specifically, from the supposed public health authorities and the supposed honest experts on this, who were telling consumers, smokers who might have switched, no, switching is no good, this stuff is still harmful for you. Well, that you translate the message that smokeless tobacco is just as bad for you as smoking, and just turn it around, and all it's saying is, if you're a smoker and you're considering switching to a smoke-free alternative, don't bother, you might as well smoke. So that was that paper from about 10 years ago, and it was really taking on the lies that existed then. But subsequent to that, my focus, and that of pretty much, even more so, pretty much everyone else working on these topics, has been to confront lies with the truth. And of course, you can see the reason you might want to do that, and ultimately, in the long run, you would hope that putting the truth out will eventually win out over the lies. But, in the long run, a lot of people are dead. And so it starts to look like it's a more effective strategy to go after the lies and the liars and confront them head on and call them on it. And, this blog is one little corner of an initiative to start doing just that.
That was kind of part of your initiative or inspiration to name your blog that and give it that lean, is in just what you've seen from the public health community regarding tobacco harm reduction, just completely non-factual information time after time again.
Yeah, that's right. So, unfortunately, the community that calls itself public health, and, I say this as somebody who, like I said, spent most of my career as a professor of public health sciences who really cared about real public health and real science. But, what has become the public health community is more of a temperance nannying busybody community that just wants to tell people what to do. And if they won't smoke like they're, stop smoking like they're supposed to, just quit and suffer as much as possible, then, let them die. And that's the message. And so in order to communicate that message, in order to communicate the anti-harm reduction message that's inherent in that, they have to lie, because the truth is very pro-harm reduction. To paraphrase Stephen Colbert, the truth has a very strong pro-THR bias, and the only way that they can be anti-harm reduction is to simply lie. There just aren't any truthful cases for anti-harm reduction. But people believe them, right? I mean, the public health movement of 2012 grew out of the genuine public health movement from 20 or 30 years ago, and they're still coasting on the credibility that was earned by a previous generation.
As somebody that's spent a lot of your career in public health, what would you say is the motivating factor for a lot of people that are going after e-cigarettes and at the same time supporting things like NRTs and nicotine patches and so on? A lot of people seem to tie it to money that's funding departments and academic institutions, or is it just an ideology? Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, there's a little bit of all of those, no doubt. And in fact, if you go to the About tab at the blog page, you'll actually find my list, which is a little more carefully phrased and thought out than I can do offhand in an interview, of the different reasons. And the ones that you just mentioned are definitely on the list. There are also a few others, and they range from the incredibly cynical, like you cannot keep up the business of being anti all of this stuff and continue on the gravy train and continue to collect all the wonderful master settlement agreement money and so forth, if people start switching to harm reduction. And in fact, if people move on to low risk alternatives to smoking, then abstinence, universal abstinence, this grand goal that certain people have, is never going to happen. Because if someone smokes and their choice is smoking or becoming abstinent, they have an awfully good reason to become abstinent, the health effects. Whereas if someone vapes or uses smokeless tobacco or some other low-risk non-combustion product, they have some reasons why they might choose abstinence instead, but they also have reasons why they might choose to continue using the product. There's not this overwhelming push that would favor abstinence. And so anybody who has staked their career, stakes their personal view of the world or whatever on that, actually is more worried about harm reduction than they are about smoking. Because as long as people are smoking, they can try to eliminate it. When people are using a low-risk alternative, it'll quickly become apparent that they don't have a case.
Right. And suddenly, what they're doing is a lot less meaningful.
Yeah, it's less meaningful. Hopefully they'll stop being able to get paid to do it. But then also, there's a psychological element. There are people who have been working on this for 10, 20 years, maybe even 5 years. They get invested in this notion of how they're going to stop the harms from smoking. Well, if the harms from smoking are largely eliminated in spite of their approach rather than because of their approach, that leaves it, at the end of the day, that their careers are rather failures. And you can see why they might work hard to keep that from happening, though I mean, you'd hope for better from people, but you don't always get that.
Just looking at the federal side regarding the Tobacco Act and things of that nature, where do you see our industry in the next 18 months? What can we do?
Yeah, that's a really tough call. I mean, the rulings that could come out of Washington, I mean, run, the whole spectrum of possibilities are still on the table the way things stand right now. And, we really hope that consumers, consumer organizations, industry organizations can focus on, protecting the opportunity for harm reduction, e-cigarettes, while encouraging the continuing improvement of quality and quality control and so forth. I mean, that's really critical. We'd like to see the flexibility maintained, the innovation and the various options that vapers who really learn about the topic, and even smokeless tobacco users, having the opportunity to use different products, while at the same time trying to rein in some of the excesses that could hurt someone eventually if something goes wrong. The perfect view of regulation, of course, is to let people do what they want to do, but make sure that it's as safe as possible. That, unfortunately, is not the mindset of many regulators these days. But if we can push things in that direction and say, yeah, regulation is great so long as it's trying to improve people's opportunities and freedoms and safety rather than trying to narrow their options, that would be a great thing. We'll see. Yeah.
Well, I did want to get a chance for you to talk a little bit more about your blog. I know that you are one of the main author, and Maine also writes. What are kind of some of the things that you guys? I mean, obviously the lies, but what are some of the things that recently that have really popped up to you that people should be reading about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're focused on a combination of taking on, some of the latest things to come out that people are talking about, and sort of trying to build a body of arguments against the lies that we keep hearing over and over again. And so, in terms of the classic lies, I mean, they basically fall into two categories. One category is that the low-risk products are not really low risk, and those take the form of, with e-cigarettes, complaining that, or portraying trace amounts of chemicals that are detectable in the vapor that would be harmful in high concentrations, trying to claim that these are terrible poisons. Same arguments are made about smokeless tobacco, even though we have the epidemiology that shows that it doesn't cause harm at any measurable level. Then there's the second category of claiming that the harm reduction action, the behavioral choice by individuals doesn't happen or won't work. And, it's completely absurd, right? I mean, here we are sitting amongst people who have made exactly that choice, and yet there persists a claim that, oh, these aren't proven ways to stop smoking, when we have, hundreds of people worth of proof sitting right here. And, sort of between those two, we get a never-ending flow of claims, mostly focused on the former list of trying to scare people about, evil, scary-sounding chemicals that are in these. And, half of our posts so far, probably fully half of our posts so far, have been taking on that very point and saying, okay, yes, someone detected a little bit of this chemical in e-cigarette vapor, but, either it's harmless, or in these quantities, it's, thousands of times below the levels that might be considered harmful. But, my personal interest actually, as a scientist, goes more to the behavioral side, and that's where, there's this great frustration about the lies about, oh, we haven't had the proper randomized controlled study. Well, some things aren't studyable using randomized controlled studies, or not very effectively, and this is one of them. So those two categories, and of course we've taken on particular individuals. Anybody can thumb back through the archives and see where we've named names, and we're intent on naming names, and you know the headline reads "Person X is a liar" on numerous occasions, and you know I think that's just how we have to start playing it.
Agreed, and I think with regards to the science coming out every year is just more and more and more. The study that Dr. Pelosa is working on in Italy and things of that nature are just, it's really stacking up in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, and it's sort of as an aside, it's not really about lies, but it's about building the truth. I'm trying to use this blog, this forum, our discussions to improve our research agenda, to try to figure out how to consolidate the information we have into ways that it's more difficult to pretend it doesn't exist, more difficult to ignore. So, that of course is a potential long-run solution for anybody who's trying to tell the truth. It doesn't, unfortunately, do much to change the behavior of the people who are intent on lying, but you have to work different angles.
Well, I think it's great work you're doing. If there's anything else you'd like to share with our community, feel free. But in any case, I really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, look for it on the blog. You'll find plenty of what I want to share almost every day.
Dr. Phillips, thanks so much.
Thank you.